name's Justin, and I'm the host of the Goblins and Gargoyles podcast. And you are in Goblin Talk. It is a sideshow that we're doing next to our major D&D productions, simply because I need time to cook, and I just want to introduce some new members to the Goblin crew, but also talk about topics. And to begin with, I wanted to introduce the new members of the Goblin team that have not been introduced yet in our Cyberpunk D&D. This is Tib.
Hello.
And Ponzi.
Hello.
And with that out of the way, guys, I wanted to ask everybody here, how did you get into D&D? And especially, what does it mean for you in your life? This is pretty much our entire podcast. It's our job at this point. And it's just really cool to hear the stories of my friends and how they got into this amazing hobby. I think the new people should get a chance to talk first, especially Tib or Ponzi. Which one of you guys wants to go first?
You want to flip a coin, Ponzi? Shall we flip a coin?
No.
Okay.
You go first.
Oh. Okay.
All right, Tib. So, how did you get into D&D?
All right.
Tell me the lore.
So it goes far back in high school, where I met Peter for the first time in sophomore year, and he was like the. Have you ever seen like those stereotypical little theater jock memes? That's basically what it was like, where he kind of just like, "Hey, you come here," and then he indoctrinated me into like the whole theater thing. And during the process, he would slowly show me these craft guide to D&D videos, which I honestly still love to this day. And anytime I want to like introduce someone to D&D, I show them those videos. But I slowly got into it, and it was like one of my favorite things. I really wanted to join a campaign. And at a time, we knew a friend who was starting up a campaign, and I was super excited for it. The campaign did not go so well, because there was just generally a lot of complaints with the players and the DM. But then I was lucky enough to be given the invitation by Justinian the Great to join the, what was it called? The
Forsaken Crusaders.
Yes, the Forsaken Crusaders, with my first like serious D&D player character, Kashmir. And I did not get it at all at first, I'm gonna be for real, because I still remember trying to like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you had like blood demon arts from Demon Slayers? And you were like, that's not how that game works. And I was like, fuck, how does it work? And I had to go deeper into it until I eventually like found this video. I was like, oh, how to build Alucard from Castlevania in D&D. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go with that. And then I slowly got more and more into it until I made my own campaign. And now it's a lot of fun. And anyone who likes making stories and making up these characters, is always fun to have them in there. And me personally, I think it's a little bit like it adds a little bit of spice if you throw in like older characters into newer stuff, you know. It makes a big story, and it kind of like you can trek back the story of your characters to the story of who you were when you made them. So it's always like a cool little history marker in your life, looking back on all that stuff.
I remember specifically when you first joined our group and you were making Kashmir. I remember it was so hilarious because we were playing D&D with our major campaign, our personal one called Forsaken Crusader, for like a solid 2 years at that point. And Tib joined in, and I wanted to do a story involving the planes of existence, where the characters would go from each plane. And one of them would be, I think it's Shadowfell, the world of shadows, where the vampires come from and all that stuff. And I remember he came into the group and he specifically was like, hey, Justin, I want to make a vampire character. And I was like, oh yeah, this is lining up perfectly. And it's crazy because ever since then, since you hit me with all these random things like, Justin, I want to have it that my character can like, I want him to teleport. I want him to like shoot all these things and all this. And I was like, dude, I got you. And I think from that moment onwards, because Tim brings a lot of chaos, but we work really well together where we're able to control that chaos. And I think that's when we specifically became really good friends.
Yeah.
Around that time when you were telling me all these characters that you're creating, and I would listen to all of these ideas, and then you would hit me with like oh my god, blah, 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 and then you'd be like, yeah, and a vampire, and I'll be like, make that be your character. That's
you still do that. I'll still hit you with like ideas that are like a lot, and then you're like, okay, so let's tweak it a little bit, make it more cohesive, and you still help me with that a lot.
Yeah, bro. And I always will remember when you first joined the group, because that's when we were bringing in new people, and it was great because now you're here. You're on a podcast.
I'm on a podcast, guys.
Now what about you, Ponzi?
Yeah. So how I started my journey with D&D was actually through a mutual friend that I grew up with, who would consistently talk to me about like the mechanics of D&D and, you know, all the great things that she enjoyed about it. And I'm somebody who's very introverted, so whenever we would have time to like talk together, we spent a lot of time at Girl Scouts, so we would talk a lot, and she would always try to kind of get me to role play in these situations to help me understand why she was so into it. And eventually one day she had brought up that she was making a campaign with all of her friends and she wanted to invite me. So of course, this is around like COVID. So I remember being at I think at some, I don't even remember too much, but I just remember being on a call with about like, I think there was like 8 or like 10 people in that first session. And quite frankly, the amount of people kind of made it a really jagged and not very fun session, but it did give me an opportunity to meet Justin, and he offered me an invitation to the campaign he was currently doing, which was Forsaken Crusaders. And though he was already at a point in the story where there was a lot of characters with their development and things were leading almost to an end, he still involved me in it and made my character just as special as the others, which allowed me to kind of see the beauty in D&D, because even though I may not be entirely into some of the mechanics and certain ways that traditional 5e can be, the way that Justin DM'd really made me like kind of see the light and how homebrew and kind of just really using your creativity can make a story go, you know, far. And D&D has helped me so much, like in role playing and in kind of just being more social, because nowadays I don't really have the opportunity to be as social as I once was. So it's always so fun to come together and like try to see what's going to happen next in the story and how we'll react to it. And even if I feel like I'm not the best at consistency, it's always a fun opportunity to kind of build a character with everyone else. So, yeah.
And you had a Go character.
Yes, I did. I had her name was Kat. Well, Kat for short, but her name was Kat Sinclaver. As in cat piano in German, because I don't know. I kind of made her on a whim, but she was always so fun. She is genuinely a character I hold dear to me. She was always so fun to play with. She was a changeling who had a face she didn't know how she got, and I was kind of just like rolling with it because I really didn't understand D&D. So I was just like, let me get the background of Inheritor and let me figure out what the fuck I can do with this, because I have no idea where this is gonna go. And it turned out pretty well for what it was.
I mean, Kat Sinclaver is a badass name. I'm gonna be for real.
Yeah, I agree. Kat was one of the best characters in the original Forsaken Crusaders, because Ponzi joined in right before we kind of switched the campaign to like its second phase, because it was like a really long-term campaign. And when Ponzi joined in with Kat, it kind of marked a complete different change in the story. And Kat's character with the face that she didn't recognize, inspired so many events in the story that it was crazy, like elemental abilities and stuff like that. And all of these things kind of tying together because of how important it is to have these interesting characters and how much D&D means to us. Because Kat and Kashmir and also all of our other characters that we had in that old campaign, even though we're not playing it anymore, they completely motivated us and changed us into the future of what we do now, like 3 to 4 years later. And also it all got us out through COVID. Like that was during prime COVID. And that's how I met most of you guys.
Yeah. I mean, I still use like the idea of Kashmir and like his character to this day. Like, I remember at another point in time, one of my other friends started up a campaign, and Kashmir was a pivotal character in that campaign because my player character for it was his son and like a descendant. And then I continued to make stories for Kashmir and his bloodline. And he's still like, I want to find a way to even like scooch him into my current like stories now.
Because this is a character that you've created, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just a D&D character. It's something that means a lot to you. And speaking of which, I want Carlos to speak next. He joined our group later than everybody else in this group call. And I just want you to explain how you got into D&D, what your experiences were like, because I've heard some of his stories and these are hilarious.
Oh no.
Like Justin said, I'm like the most disconnected from the group because I joined in through Justin in senior year of high school. But before that, my first experience with D&D was a basic campaign that was through a pre-built story. I forgot the name of it. Or the plot even. And it was me also got introduced through crap guides like Tib. Because that was so funny to me. So I showed them to my friend and I was like, dude, you have like a book that you got gifted from your friend, right? You should use that to make a story. None of us knew the rules. We didn't know what the flip we were doing. And I wanted to run Wild Mage Sorcerer. We didn't know how that worked, so we thought that 100% guaranteed wild magic was after every spell. So that led to some shenanigans. I casted wild magic, and somehow I think I summoned the Cambion, which is like a really high-level fiend.
That's wild. That's crazy.
Cleared our party.
Imagine like trying to use like prestidigitation or some shit, then you accidentally summon an Archfiend.
That's crazy.
Fireboy, yeah. It cleared our party because we were all level 1, and it's like a monster that has 82 HP or something like that. So that was
guys.
fun.
I accidentally summoned Satan. My bad.
Oopsies, guys. Sorry.
So our entire group just got really upset after that, sadly. So we tried to like rerun it back. Everybody was on their phones and it just died there. We all went home. Second time, it was just pretty boring campaign. And then I thought, okay, I'm not vibing with D&D. I guess it's not for me. Then come along, Justin. We sit together in senior year and we're talking about Destiny, which is a game that we play, right? And I'm talking to him and he goes, Carlos, I'm thinking of making a Destiny campaign. And I was, what? That sounds amazing. I didn't even consider that you could make like a D&D on another franchise that wasn't just fantasy, right? So that blew my mind. And I was like, count me in. And it was the best thing, like one of the best choices I've ever made in my life. I met like all these wonderful people that are here and more. I really got into D&D. I made a character named Uller, which is like this weird Cyclops looking race.
Uller the goat, bro.
Uller the goat. This weird looking Cyclops alien guy that has the brain power of a third grader. And imagine a third grader with a gun. So it's not going to end well. And that got to some really fun shenanigans. And yeah, honestly, that's how my story to D&D came along. And it was just really fun. Because it changed my life completely now.
And I remember specifically when you joined the group, you were like, oh, I don't know if I can RP. I don't know if I can do anything. And now look at us. We're like 4 campaigns deep. We got a podcast going, freaking multiple story arcs, multiple characters. And even though Destiny D&D's in the past, look how far things have gone. It's been now, I think, a whole year since you have been in the group, and you've completely changed the vibe in a good way. And it's amazing, bro.
I'm the best.
But yeah, so Tib, Ponzi, and Carlos all joined our D&D adventures later in our kind of timeline as a group. But the people who were there from the beginning, at least during the primordial days when I got into D&D, were Jonathan and Peter, especially these two. I remember we had in 6th grade a drama class, and it was wild. Like, I'm talking 2015 drama kids, right? And I remember that's where it kind of started, because as I sort of gotten really close to these guys, I slowly introduced them to the things I was interested in. And when I was a little boy Justin, my dad sat me down and he was like, you should play D&D. This was during 4th edition, so that was a long time ago. And he basically pulled out D&D and showed me this game. And it kind of changed my brain chemistry. It completely changed it's like a canon event. Right? I get hit with this canon event, my dad indoctrinating me into D&D. And I remember in 7th grade, Jonathan can correct me if I'm wrong, but in 7th grade in Spill Out, which was this awful place in our middle school. But in Spill Out, they had Take a Board Game to School Day. And during Take a Board Game to School Day, I decided to bring a board game that I've been wanting to play for a long time with people other than my dad, and it was Dungeons and Dragons.
What a peak time that was. Fantastic. I kind of do remember that. And I remember, because I used to be like, Dungeons and Dragons, this is that nerd shit, right? Like, that loser garbage. It was not that loser garbage. That was amazing time. It was like a little simplistic. I don't. Was that when you just told us about D&D, or did we do our first like campaign then? Like did we start?
I remember I told you guys in 6th grade. I told you guys about D&D, but we were too interested in Doctor Who and Undertale to really play D&D.
We were obsessed.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. That was a crazy time.
Yeah.
And I remember in 7th grade was when I actually brought it in, and we did our first campaign, which was a murder mystery style, where a group of adventurers get lured by a lich into a mansion, right? And one of these players was a traitor, which was Jonathan. He was the lich who lured all the players to the mansion, and then shenanigans ensued. And it was like 4 sessions max. And we would all play like early in the morning, like at 6. We would all get to school early, and then we would play right at the end of school.
It was such a great time to play D&D, because like that was during like the innocent days of youth. All you had to worry about was like those little assignments in middle school. So you would just go in, because we had like the Spill Out area. It was like this little fenced off area, right? So like we would just walk in the morning, sit down, and we'd all be like, "Oh, can't wait to play some D&D." And it was awesome every time. And it was so cool because we would just be role playing, having fun. And then because it was in the beginning of school, we would like finish school, and then since I had classes with Justin, I'd be like, "How did you think the session went? What did you want me to do with my character?" Like stuff like that. Like we would talk
And I'd
about,
be like, "Jonathan, you have to kill him now. You gotta kill him." You have
I would be like, "Justin, what would be a good strategy to kill him? You should really summon the skeleton army, Jonathan. Not like the skeleton army. Oh yeah, that's a good idea."
Cool.
It was a fun time.
It was great. And I just remember that era because that's when our group formed. And it was crazy because it was like everything aligned, because that was around the time that Critical Role came out. That was around the time that Dungeons and Dragons entered the mainstream, because Stranger Things came out the year before. And I remember because of that, people genuinely, when we started playing, they gathered around us. It was wild. Like, people literally would just hand me character sheets. Can you add my character into your story? I was like, this is crazy, because I thought it would be mega nerd crap, and I thought people would hate it. But we started getting a crowd, and then once that crowd kind of died down, we cemented ourselves as a group. It was all the people who kind of sorted together. you know?
Yeah, D&D was a really good. I feel like a lot of like the friends in middle school, we became closer because of the D&D. You know, like D&D, like we had like silly, goofy arguments. You know, like I remember, me and Justin would talk about how like, okay, I'm gonna lure these two characters in and then stab them with like a poison knife. That was when I revealed I was the villain, and you know we would have stupid arguments like. Pause, but it was fun. Like you know, like those stupid arguments are what makes D&D fun. You know, like it's like that like experience. Everything about it is just so enjoyable. You know, you think back on it fondly. So
Yeah, and I remember Jonathan got killed because he was the villain and the Lich, and Peter's character got killed by Jonathan. He got lured into a well, I think. And when he got lured into a well, he got turned into a ghost, and he basically caused a ghost revolution where Jonathan's character was like, kill them all! And then Peter's character shut up was like, no, they won't. And then he basically told all the ghosts to kill Jonathan, and then Jonathan got pushed down the cliff, and the whole thing exploded. And you were so angry. You were like,
dude, I was angry because it's so stupid. Because at the time I was like, what? There was nothing I could have done to have there was nothing I could have done to have prevented this. So I was like, oh, this is so stupid. But now in hindsight, I'm like, that was awesome. That was funny as hell. Like, you know, it's just like one of those things like at the time you're like, but now you think of it fondly. It was like a good experience. So
yeah. And Peter, I know he's at work, so he can't really share most of his stories, but he was there for all of it. So was Seb. He joined our group around the time. And even though he couldn't make it to the podcast, like, I remember these things, like, fondly. Like, this is how we made our group. Because our group was originally, it was me, Jonathan, Peter, Seb, and then a few other of our friends who slowly disappeared over the years. But look at us now. We have remained. We have added more people to our friend group, people who are extremely important to us. And we have grown so much that we have become a podcast. We decided, you know what? We're not going to do our stories just for ourselves anymore. Why don't we show people the things that we do and the things we create? And I think that's great.
Yeah, it's honestly really nice because we get to, like you said, we get to share something that has connected all of us, has made us all significantly closer together. Even somebody like me who joined in late, or somebody like Andrew, who you guys haven't met, who's another one of our players. We've all gotten significantly closer over the same thing, and we want to kind of, I guess, spread our joy to everybody else. It's a really nice feeling when we can make other people happy with the things that make us happy.
And so
Yeah,
really,
like I've seen. Oh, continue what you're saying too.
it was like it's like the really binding thing because
Yeah.
there was a point where because of like COVID and like things that happened during COVID, I would end up drifting from this friend group. But then, like a year or so later, D&D would bring me back into the group, and it would help mend everything that happened. And it's a really powerful thing to like have this type of friendship caused by just a game.
kid, I remember I was super upset because Justin and like a lot of these other people in the group were like in different high schools than me, and so I didn't get a chance to talk to them too often. But what always brought me back almost every week to talk with them, and why I think we're still in touch today, honestly, is because I would always join. They would be like, oh my god, once a week Jonathan joins to play D&D with the group, and it was always so much. It was always the highlight of my week. It was so great.
You were such an elusive figure. And it was like looking at like a Bigfoot sighting every time I saw you in that voice channel. It was like, oh my god, oh, he's here,
Jonathan, he's in VC.
Yes,
He's here.
it was a momentous occasion to see Jonathan in VC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even gonna lie, that still happens now. Like when he joins.
It's not as bad. It's not as bad. I join more often now.
No, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but I will always thank D&D for bringing me together with you people, especially Ponzi, who I'm dating. We met because of D&D, and Ponzi is literally my favorite person. And I met this person in Dungeons and Dragons. Isn't that crazy? Like, I never thought in a million years that I would find the person that I love through a game that me and my friends were playing. And it is unbelievable to see all of the things that kind of lined up in my life because I started playing this game with my friends. And that's why I love bringing people into the game. Because when you bring people into this game and you're like, oh, you're not telling them to play a board game, at least in my eyes. It's like storytelling masterclass. You and your friends get together and you do play a board game. But when you really synergize, it turns into literally storytelling. And you guys craft stories with each other. And these stories become binding vows of your friendship. And that's one of the major reasons why I even still play this game to this day. And that's why I play multiple TTRPGs. Because D&D isn't just the only one that can give you this experience. It's the friendships and the groups that give that experience with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because it's not just the masterfully written story made by our DM. It's also just us players interacting. And it's genuinely like a life-changing experience, like Justin said. It has impacted our lives. From 1 year of playing to another, my friend group doubled. And it's not just like random goons that I met on the internet. It's you guys who I'm now significantly closer to. And it's such a nice feeling because you finished an arc of like your campaign and you just think about it. You're like about to go to sleep and dude, that was so crazy. I can't believe that guy died. Dude, I miss that character so much. Dude, Omen did a crazy thing. Dude, he lit the entire room on fire. It's like things like that, and it's just so entertaining.
Yeah.
It just like keeps you up at night sometimes, at least for me. Maybe I'm just crazy, but yeah.
No, you're not crazy.
No,
As the DM,
I talk to people about
No,
it. It's like the
continue to-
craziest shit. I'll like activate, like I'll be on the phone, I'll call my girlfriend after a literally long night of D&D, and the first thing I'll go is, dude, you won't believe what the fuck just happened. And I'll run by everything that happened with like the most like expressive emotions possible, because that thing it's awesome. It is the most immersive thing to be in. If I had to choose between that and VR, fucking going D&D, bro. VR,
I got it.
cringe, boo. Fake
It cures your
reality.
ADHD, dude.
Chad imagination.
Chad
It
imagination.
cures your ADHD, man. It's insane.
Oh,
It really
for sure.
does.
Especially as a big RPG fan, I do love RPGs. There's just something about being able to play your own story as your own character, and anything can happen, and not be limited by like, oh well, this isn't making up. Like you could just do whatever you want, and it's just by the bounds of like how far can you take it. It's just so liberating, so fun. Like you can do anything in D&D, like to an extent, but like almost anything. It's really fun. It's really cool.
Out of everybody in the group, you have done the most things in D&D. This guy, every single time that he wants something really silly, he goes, "You're limiting my creative liberty." This guy, let me give you some context.
Bro has committed assault and battery.
That is true. In the personal D&D we're doing now, I won't give you guys too much context because it's not really that important. This guy wanted, adamantly, every single type of cheese possible. He spent the group's entire money bartering with the cheese salesman, and when I told him that he couldn't get like Gouda cheese, he goes, "You're limiting my creative liberty. You're limiting it.
It's all expired and I want moldy."
We had to buy a new ship because of this guy's moldy ass cheese.
So it all started because one time in like a really old D&D, I was like, Justin, what would happen if I just pissed in this toilet right now? But I rolled a nat 20. And my logic was, well, if I roll a nat 20, something amazing has to happen. That's how D&D works. This was just like, you piss really good. And I was like, well, you're limiting my creative liberty. Why can't something awesome happen? And then Justin was like, I think that's not how it works. So I was like, okay, bro, like. And then, like, for the Gouda cheese stuff, it was like, Jonathan, you're wasting so much time with the cheese. It's like, okay, bro, you're the DM. Just give me the cheese. Like, stop living.
And I would be like, "You don't have enough money for the cheese," and you're like, "Just do it. Just do it. Just give me the cheese."
Bro rolled really high up like bartering.
And he got the cheese.
He got the cheese for like 80% off. It's insane.
Yeah.
And we were poor.
You're poor now because of what this guy did with the cheese.
Your fault.
I think it was worth it. I think it was worth it.
My God.
Yeah, these are the things that I just love about this game, because I have such fond memories of these things. Like you buying every piece of cheese, Oler's character being a silly guy with the mental constitution of a third grader. In Destiny D&D, this guy would go to grade school and he would get gold stars because that is how intelligent he was. He would get
I would argue with like 5-year-olds, dude. I would actually argue.
And he's like an alien guy. So he's like a little Glorvo who's like
6 foot tall.
And it was hilarious. And then I even remember with Tib, we would be playing and you'd be Kashmir or even Omen. And then something really, really silly happens or really, really dumb. And as the character who's usually like the straight man, you would just be like, I'm out. That's it.
I remember because I remember like the whole thing between like our party and someone else's party, and I was like, guys, if you don't stop, I'm gonna shoot a fireball in this room right now. I will blow up everything.
These stories are like almost a year old now, and we can still go back to them, reminisce, and laugh. And we can laugh about it like 20 times in the same day. It's just so entertaining. So I love D&D so much.
Mm-hmm. And I hope a lot of people pick up D&D. Like, I know that it will be hard for some people, especially because I was a part of that audience during peak COVID, where I would be watching D&D playthroughs, but I couldn't play any because I didn't have a friend group. And just know that if you are in that position where you really want to play, but you can't, it will happen. It will happen. If you are really content on playing and creating and sharing these stories, putting that will out there, by pure coincidence, I met these people, right? And that's probably what's going to happen. That's what happens to most of us, is we randomly find a group of people that we just love playing with. That's how I met Ponzi. That's how I met Carlos. That's how I met Tib.
And it's just like, because the thing about D&D is that it's such an open game, and you gotta remember these things, because when you do find a group, there's a chance that it's gonna fall apart. There's a chance that D&D is gonna suck. But don't let that like bring you down. My first D&D sucked, and now I'm having like the time of my life.
I think most
and
people
don't be stuck up on the rules. Change them. Go homebrew. That's the way to go. You're gonna have a blast.
I think most
Don't be
people
what
you're saying, Tim.
D&Ds sucked. Like, I'm gonna be for real.
Yeah.
100%.
My first D&D sucked. Carlos's first D&D sucked. My first, like, me as a DM sucked ass. But that didn't stop me. You just gotta keep doing it. As the great Miss Frizzle said, if at first you fail, find out why. Then keep going. Because that's what helps you grow in this type of community, is you find out what happened, what went wrong, you take notes, because it's not just about you running a world for other players. The players help you run the world with you. It's like a whole collaborative thing. This is a community thing. And I think that's one of the best parts about it.
And that's how magical tabletop games are. And I'll never stop playing them. I'll be 80 years old. I'll have a beard. I'll be like Gandalf. I'll be like, you step into a tavern and you see your friend beside you.
Justin, you are limiting my creativity once more.
Please. I need the cheese.
Yes, I can do that 20.
But yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Goblin Talk. This one means a lot to us, and we're going to be talking about more silly things next time. And of course, if you have any suggestions of what we should talk about, put it in the comments. Send a message. We'll look, we'll see it, we'll find it. But thank you all for listening, and thank you all for tuning in. I hope you guys have a good one.